Today, I am joined by Maryann Holden, a certified holistic health coach, drugless practitioner, and yoga teacher who's redefining how women approach aging, energy, and health. After years in the traditional medical field, Maryann realized that true healing doesn't come from another prescription. It comes from connecting with the body and addressing the deeper roots of stress and imbalance. Her own recovery from debilitating back pain through yoga sparked her mission to make movement and holistic health accessible to women at every stage of life. In this episode, we dive into how yoga supports the mind and aging process, why so many of us wait until pain forces us to slow down, and how simple, mindful movement can become the foundation of lifelong strength and wellness. We'll also touch on this daily mineral you may be avoiding and why it's time to embrace it. If you're ready to shift from surviving to truly thriving, this conversation is one you don't want to miss. I am super excited to have my good friend Maryann Holden here with us. She is a certified holistic health counselor. She is a certified yoga instructor, extensive background in the medical field. So Maryann, welcome to the Mind Body Revolution podcast.
Thank you, Sierra. It's so nice to be here with you. I am so excited for this. Thank you.
This is awesome. So quick backstory for us. Maryann and I met probably 7 or 8 years ago now through Isogenics when I joined you all on the team. You truly had a huge impact on me, especially during COVID when you offered some online yoga classes. They were beneficial to me, not just as an individual to do them, but actually sparked and inspired me to become a certified yoga instructor myself. So I want to thank you for that. I want everybody to know how amazing you are. And take us back, though, to the beginning of your journey, because you weren't where you are currently isn't where you always were with your career and everything. What led you into the medical field and kind of what was that like to be there?
Good. That's a great place to start, Sierra. Thank you for asking that question. I have to tell you that when I was growing up as a little girl, my mom would put into my ear all the time, "You're going to be a nurse when you grow up. You're going to be a nurse when you grow up," right? And you hear that over and over. I remember when I was graduating from 8th grade and I was trying to get into high school, and I wanted to go to a technical school, and I was going to go to school for fashion design. But I had taken all these college courses in high school, and the guidance counselor said, "What are you doing? You know, you're college material," and all that stuff. So I'm in high school. I went to a public high school. I was taking college courses, biology, anatomy. I was intrigued all about the human body and learning about the body. It was so fascinating to me. So it seemed like the perfect career for me to go for. Well, I was a senior in high school, and I'm going to get real. I was dating my boyfriend, Bobby, for 3 years. When I was in high school, I got accepted into one of the nursing schools in the area. It was a 3-year nursing program. Cool. And I was very excited. It was only 2 of us that got in. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is fabulous, right? And so I got into the school, and then I learned in February that I was pregnant. That definitely put a little strain on the situation. And I was still in high school, and we decided we were going to have the baby. I was only 17. So what to do? So we decided while I was still in high school that we'd get married. Here we are, a senior in high school. We got married, had our own apartment, it was interesting. And I had my daughter Jennifer in October 1976. Best decision I ever made was to follow through what was right there. But in the meantime, that school, I had to cancel going to my school to be an RN. Well, when Jennifer was 1 year old, I got back into nursing school. And I was so happy that I did. It wasn't the school I wanted to go to. That was a 3-year RN program at the time. I got into a 1.5 year LPN course, licensed practical nurse course, and went through that and graduated. So when I started working as a nurse, I was all happy. When I was a young girl, when I would go to the hospital or a nursing home and see women in their white caps and in their white dresses, and I used to think, wow, they're real important. They're doing really good work. They're helping people. And that was my goal, to help people, right? That's what we want to do. So I worked right out of nursing school. I got hired. I worked in long-term care facility. the geriatric population. And I loved that population. Taught me so much. And I stayed in that one job for 22 years until something came up. I had injured my back. Out of the job, I was running on a beach one weekend and I injured my back. I had a herniated disc. And so, when you're a nurse, you're lifting, you're pushing heavy med carts, you're doing a lot of things that, that really take a toll on your back. And weekly, I'd go to the chiropractor and he would adjust my back and, keep me in line. And I kept going. That led me on a whole nother journey, right? I was out of work for 3 months. I got my physical therapy. I got my chiropractic work done. I did my mindful work. I laid on that floor every morning for 30 minutes to an hour, doing the exercises that were given to me to strengthen the back while meditating and seeing my back in alignment, seeing it healed. And that was the perfect combination. And within 3 months, I was healed. And I had,
Wow.
Yeah, that was just such an awesome thing. I'm so happy that I took care of that. But I went back to work on light duty for a little while, and they were riding on me like a fly or a bee on honey, trying to find something wrong so they could fire me, because if I hurt my back once, they thought I was a threat. Yet I was there 22 years with dedicated service. Long story short, they paid me a payoff, just a payoff. It was not everything. And then had me sign documents that said I would never try to claim again and blah, blah, blah. And you can go back and get your job. And I wasn't going back there and getting my job. What that did for me, though, was to open my eyes to see that, I didn't really mean anything to a corporation. I was just a number. I was just, like it was a business. That's what it is. And you have to remember that when you're in any type of field, but this healthcare field, that really soured me. Well, I did go back to work at another facility, and it didn't feel right anymore. I lost my passion. But along with that, I started to open up my eyes to see where we were going with the healthcare field. It was so real to me that the more pills that people were given, and as I started on my own to study nutrition, the quality of nutrition that was given to this population did nothing to help their health and well-being. It just sort of took them down even further. And it really was a sour note for me to see that. So I decided I was going to pursue another avenue. And one day I'm looking through this magazine, and in this magazine, I saw an ad for the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. It was a whole page ad. And boy, did that grab my attention. I was so excited to read all of the stuff that they were offering. And I went to an orientation, and that it was in New York City. I was living in Connecticut, and I got accepted, and I was ready to go. I was just quite excited. So I went back to school. The school was on weekends. It was in New York City. And it was all new to me, New York City, having to hail a cab and go in on a train and find places to stay, because you weren't in a campus. You were at a school that was part of a big theater in the Columbus Circle in the Time Warner building. We were 1,000 students all there to learn how to heal ourselves and help others. And so it was fabulous. And it was on weekends. And I remember going to the office when I was at work. I was still working as a nurse during the week. And I went to the office and I said, hey, listen, I got accepted into this program, and I'm going to need these particular weekends off. Just like that, I got them. That's how I knew I was in the right place at the right time.
Awesome.
And I went to school there. It was a little over a year. And I got certified as a holistic health coach. And the second title, which I really take to heart, is a Drugless Practitioner. The American Association of Drugless Practitioners certified us as well. So I go back to work, I'm still working as a nurse, but I have this education, and in the daytime, I would go to work as a nurse, and in the evening, I would coach people. Well, that was like such a magnet repelling each other. I mean, I'd go to work and I'd be giving people all these pills, and I'd watch them get sicker. And then I'd go home and I'd try to help these people to prevent the very thing I was treating in the nursing.
What you're doing during the day, you're trying to stop at night.
I know. It started to really angst me. I started to think that this, I can't do both of these anymore. And I got more and more stressed trying to keep my head above water. In the job, I actually transferred to an assisted living facility where, in the beginning, it was a lot easier. You didn't have a lot to do there, but then they gradually became a glorified nursing home as well. So it was all the same stuff, just a different place. Eventually, my husband kept saying to me, why don't you just quit? And it was really hard for me. We had a house, we had a mortgage, we had bills, we had stuff. But I'll tell you, we were living to pay a mortgage, and it was just crazy. I left the job as a nurse and just rolled up my sleeves and said, I'm going to figure this out. And it takes time to build a business. You can't just quit a job that you're making a steady income and then all of a sudden it's not there. My husband and I went down to Florida. My mom was aging and I wanted to be able to help her. She was in the hospital. And I realized when I was down there that she was being led on a wrong path of the same thing I would see an elderly person be pulled in to take this pill and this pill and this pill. Every time you go to the doctor, a new script is being given.
Yep.
And I started to say to myself, this isn't right. This is my mom. Let me see what I could do. And we decided to stay in Florida because I saw that the population was just exactly the people I wanted to work with.
Nice.
So I helped my mom, helped her reduce and eliminate most of her medications, get on a healthier diet. She went on the Isogenics program. She lived to 95 years old. Healthy, strong, never lost her mind, nothing. She was very, very inspirational to so many people.
Awesome.
And that was like, I got to stay here and do this work. Well, these are my people. This is my place.
Yep.
We stayed in Florida and I started to grow my business there. I started doing speaking engagements. I started picking up clients. And from there, we found our way. Yep. When I did hurt my back, though, and I was very stressed, my oldest daughter, Jennifer, was a yoga teacher. And she said to me, Ma, you need to come to yoga. And for me, what I thought was my mind was all over the place. I was a wreck. Two things happened at once. I lost the job when I hurt my back and my husband left. Kind of boom, boom, right?
Yep.
Without these challenges, I would not be the same person I am today. They are very necessary, right?
100%.
You agree. I'm sure you agree.
Absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
Some of our worst moments is what gets us to get to our best moments.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. We have to like learn how to overcome these challenges to get stronger.
Yep.
My daughter encouraged me to go to yoga, and then I realized how much it calmed my mind. That's what I did it for first, because I couldn't stop my mind. It was just, I was so upset. And when I realized that, and then I continued, it helped my back. It strengthened the muscles in the low back where the herniated disc originates from. And I learned how to control that. I learned how to tighten those muscles. And today, I never had another injury in my back again. And I go out and I teach that to all my yoga students, because I did go back and get certified as a yoga teacher after I realized what all the incredible benefits that yoga had to offer. And then I came to the villages and I started teaching down here in Florida. And then quickly did I, get better and better at it and develop this huge following in yoga, which was a lot of fun. A real lot of fun. And today I'm still doing that. And
That's
I
great.
now work in a place called the Enrichment Academy. I went far and above the question you asked me.
You touched on it a little bit, at least from your husband's perspective, but was there a true moment, maybe before even he approached you to say, I think it's time for you to make a change, that you realized that the traditional medical path wasn't the right path for you and you needed to follow something different?
Oh, definitely. There's a couple of them. I'll tell you about two. So I'm at work. I'm working in assisted living. In assisted living, you pre-pour their meds into this, Monday, Tuesday, 9 a.m., 1 p.m., 5 p.m., 9. And so it was my turn to prepare the meds for like the floor I was working on. So I'm putting all these pills in, blood pressure, water pills, cholesterol meds, and all these different medications that I knew in my head, there's a better way to do this. But then, I can say to myself, well, these people are old and they're not going to change, which is true. They're in a place where they're probably not going to get off these meds at this point. But I got almost like this signal through the top of my head. We'll call it the crown chakra, right?
Yep.
It said, Maryann, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? I almost looked up because let's say God was talking to me.
Yep.
Why are you still doing this? You know that this isn't your work. You have other work to do. And that was a message I got. And then this was the straw that broke the camel's back. As I continued to get in there for morning shift and give that morning insulin to people and watch them go to the dining room and eat their meal and then come back, and then their blood sugar was still high. And then they would look at me and say, I took my meds. I ate the food that they told me to eat. How come my sugar is still high? I knew why, but I couldn't say it. I couldn't do anything about it. I had to be part of the system, follow the rules, work within the box. Shut up. But I love these people. They were so beautiful. Well, this one patient of mine, I loved her dearly. She was beginning to have dementia. In an assisted living, the nursing assistants would go in and put the pills out that were already set up for the patient, make the bed, and watch through their eyes that they were taking their pills. If they weren't taking the pills, they would go ahead and they would call me on the walkie-talkie and say, Maryann, could you come in because so-and-so isn't taking their pills? So I go up to the room and I close the door. I walked into the room. She was visibly upset. She said, they're trying to tell me to take these pills. And I never took them before. And I'm like, okay. And so my job at that point was to tell her why she needed this pill and this pill and this pill and this pill. I saw her getting worse all the time. I looked at her after she said this a couple of times, very upset. I looked her right in the eyes and I said, you know, you're right. You don't need these pills. And I went and I proceeded to flush them down the toilet, right?
Yep.
Oh, that was risky, right? Thank God there's no cameras in the room. But I said to myself, this is it. I said, I know that this woman is getting worse because of this medication and because of all these other factors. I mean, there are other factors involved in dementia. It isn't just one single cause, right? So I said, I am going to go to my desk and I'm going to write my resignation, because if they saw what I just did, they would have fired me anyway.
Right.
So I did. I wrote my resignation, and that was the last straw. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't see these people deteriorate before my eyes.
Yep.
Well, I was participating in that process, right?
You know what you know, and you're still having to be part of that system.
Yeah, so that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And, you know, interesting enough, as I went out and I started to grow a business, I had another aha moment that was quite interesting. So I also started working as a home health aide. And there was one day I was working and there was a couple. I'd go in their home, and basically all I was asked to do was to make them a meal, keep them company, do a little light housework. You know? And I thought, well, that's easy. I could do that for a couple hours, right? It wouldn't hurt. So I was in this lady's room, and they're sitting in the living room, and I had changed the sheets. I'm making the bed. I'll never forget this. I lifted up the corner of the bed to tuck the sheet, and there was that message again. Maryann, what are you doing? There are people out there that need to know what you know. You have people to help. You can't do much work with two people sitting in a house that aren't going to change. You got work to do.
Yep.
And I just kept getting those messages. I call it getting hit over the head with a spiritual frying pan.
I love
Doesn't
it.
that make sense? Boy.
Yep. I'm like, you're not listening, so I'm going to hit you again.
Yeah. And I figured I better listen and so I ended up having to leave that type of work too, and just, come on, Maryann, you got to just do the hard work that it takes to get yourself in a place where people know who you are, what you do, and you start to work with people.
Now, I'm sure even having those callings, that's not an easy step to make, right? Because to your point earlier, you have that job, you know you have an income, right? Mm-hmm. Was there a point at the beginning of this journey where you maybe had some resistance, maybe yourself, maybe people in your circle, that it's not happening as quickly as it should? How did you work through that? And how did you not fall into the trap that a lot of people fall into, where it's just, I'm just going to go back to what I know, even though it doesn't fill up my cup?
I burnt the bridge. I gave up my nursing license. I said, I'm never going to give another pill again.
Wow.
And at one point, I got nervous, and it wasn't too long after I gave up the license that I reapplied to get it back again. And I got it back again. This was really early on when I was down in Florida. And then I let it go again. So there's no, once you burn the bridge, you're not going to go back to that field. But like I said, I did other jobs that worked with people, but it wasn't involving medications or anything like that. I was able to do a little education, especially at the chiropractor's office. The only reason I ended up leaving that job was because my daughter called me from Connecticut and told me that she was pregnant with twins. And I'll never forget
That'll
that
keep
day.
you busy.
Yeah. She called me and I was at work and I said to her, "Jen, you're just trying to get me to come back to Connecticut. I know you're only kidding, right?" And she wasn't. She was like, "Oh, what am I going to do?" So I figured I'm going to have to take a couple months off and go back up. So I had to leave the job because they weren't going to let me leave a couple months. But anyway,
Right.
through that job, it was very enlightening because, you're always put in the right place at the right time. So you meet people, and they remember you and they come back to me. I saw somebody the other day in a chair yoga class that I was teaching. She remembered me from the chiropractor's office. I introduced isogenics to her aunt, who she introduced to her, who she introduced to her daughter. All over the country, this was going on. And here she is now in the villages in Florida taking my yoga class. I mean,
That's awesome.
yeah.
That's great. And that she remembered. So that clearly shows that you made an impact
Yeah. Oh,
and you
yeah.
were
I
doing,
think
like you
so.
said, in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. So that was good. That was a good outlet for me for a little while. But
Yep.
how did I go then not going back to work? I guess my husband did. My husband owned a business in Litchfield, Connecticut for 30 years. He was a owner of a very lucrative garage. He was a master technician. When I quit my job, he decided he was going to leave that field as well. How old was he then? Late 60s. And so he sold his half of his business to his partner, Andy, and paid Dennis over time. So we were getting an income weekly. But what we did with that income was not the smartest thing. We lived on it. We were kind of still newlyweds. Dennis and I got married in July of 2004, the same year I went to integrative nutrition. And what we should have been doing is investing that money for the future. So here we are, newlyweds and having fun and spending money. And I kept thinking to myself, yeah, my isogenics business will take off and I'll be fine. I'm not worried. But I didn't do anything to help it grow. I was just out having fun. So it was coming time for that money and it was running out. And I'm like, oh God. So Dennis went back and got his CDL, right? He always
Yep.
wanted to drive truck around the country. He thought that these people were free and they were enjoying life. It was not what he thought it was at all. So he said that dream is over. So then he started driving RVs around the country, get into an RV that the manufacturer made and drive it to, the places where they sell them. So he did that for a couple of years and it kept us afloat. It was an interesting journey. There was times when, I don't know, my husband isn't one to get stressed, but he was working with a group of people that their energy was so bad. He got sucked into it. He ended up getting shingles and he was out of work. And then he realized, oh my God, I'm letting the energy of other people absorb into my body and reducing my immune system. And
Yep.
that was just an awful experience for him. And so he realized he needs to get out and start promoting his work a little bit more.
So definitely having a support system helped you to also stay on track.
I don't know. I'm sure I would have got through it, but it would have been a lot harder.
Yep.
I have the most amazing support system in the whole world. I could talk for hours just about Dennis. He is an amazing individual. Yeah.
It's great to get to know him a little better through you and then hopefully in our connection, because before, honestly, what I knew of Dennis was you would sometimes see him in the background when we were doing our yoga. And then I knew you guys were traveling in the RV, but that's like all I knew. So it's awesome how connected you two are on your journey together.
And, when I met Dennis way back in 1999, I knew as we started to get to know each other that there was work the two of us were going to do together. So finally, it's coming to fruition. Our business called A Slight Shift in Thinking is now starting. And we did our first 4-week course in that.
Awesome.
And he is now part of what we call the Enrichment Academy, which is an adult education in the villages, open to the public. And he's got the Slight Shift in Thinking course. I'm part of that as well. And then he's also teaching the Tao Te Ching. If you've ever heard of that, it's not a religion, but it's called a way, the way. It's Chinese philosophy in a way, I guess you can call it, but it's so interesting. And so he studied that for a long time. And he's going to start a course in miracle classes and just lots of different cool spiritual stuff,
Nice. We'll make sure to link that in the show notes. So A Slight Shift in Thinking, you said?
Yes. We have a YouTube channel that we're just starting to grow. He has a Facebook page called A Slight Shift in Thinking. We're starting to upload videos and stuff onto that.
Great. We'll definitely drop that in the show notes. So listeners can not only connect with you, of course, we'll make sure your stuff is in there, but they can also check out what you guys have to offer. So you touched on it a little bit when you shared about the woman who came to your chair yoga class. And that's where I know really the bulk about you is through the yoga and what you've done with that, and know that you do classes. And it certainly played, you already said, a big role in your own healing journey. What is it though? And is it just that sparked enough in you to make that kind of like the launch pad, if you will, for your work? Like, what really made you believe yoga is a major piece of the pathway that people need to be able to heal themselves?
Very good. Well, I'll tell you, once you have an experience in something and you overcome it, it's your duty, really, to share that with other people, I feel. I've felt amazing. I stopped the mind chatter. I calmed down. I learned the breathing techniques. I learned how to be strong and flexible. And I thought, who wouldn't want that if they're looking for a way to live a healthier lifestyle? I mean, my real goal, honestly, at 67 years old, is to help people age without getting sick, going through the typical channels that elderly people go through, so painful to watch.
Yep.
If I can just educate them a little bit on how to empower yourself to live a healthier lifestyle, why not do that? So I got excited as I started to introduce yoga to more people. And then clients would come up, yoga clients. Like the other day, oh my goodness, they talk about like when I teach them, there's a breathing technique called the 4-7-8 breathing technique. You heard of that before?
I have, but can you explain it for our listeners?
Sure. So it's a technique that you breathe in through the nose for a count of 4 deeply, because you don't just breathe here. You breathe into the diaphragm and the belly. You pause with that breath for a count of 7, and then you exhale it strongly for a count of 8. You do 4 cycles of that. Now, with a breathing technique like that, you could simply reduce your blood pressure, your pulse, your anxiety. You could fall asleep easier. Dr. Andrew Weil, if you've heard of him before, he's a holistic doctor. He's all over YouTube, all over the internet. He was a conventional medical doctor that went back and trained to be a holistic doctor. He had a CD that had 8 different breathing techniques on it. I bought it years ago. CDs was the way to get educated, right? So I bought it and I started learning these techniques, and now he's on YouTube. You can get to the 4-7-8 breathing technique. He can explain it completely to you. But he said to me, and he said in the video, which to me was like speaking right to my heart. I have patients, he said, that are on anxiety medications, depression medications, all this stuff. And with this technique, he helped release them of those medications. And I'm like,
awesome.
Wow, I'm going to have, so I have clients that say to me, I went to the doctor the other day and I sat there waiting for him to come in the room because they take so long to come back in the room. And I lowered my blood pressure right down. And the doctor said, you didn't, we're going to lower your blood pressure medication, or we're going to take whatever. They were amazed. And so they're out there telling their sisters and their friends this technique.
Yep.
So things get spread around. So that's one of the profound things. I love people to learn, right?
Yep.
And then the other thing I love teaching is when I'm teaching some of these older people on balance techniques. The minute I mention balance, their eyes and their whole, you can see their demeanor just go,
Yeah.
They're afraid that they're, the next thing I'm going to be teaching is how to get off the floor once you're on the floor, right? Because these people who take chair yoga are deadly afraid to fall and get up. Yep. So I'm going to that's my next teaching. But anyway, when it comes to balance and they immediately start to get that idea in their brain that they can't balance, I start showing them kinesiology and how what you think affects the cells of your body, and your body responds automatically. So I pull a student from the room and I have them come up and we do that arm technique. I'm strong, I'm strong, I'm strong, I'm weak,
Yep.
I'm weak, right? And show them how they told their brain or their body or their cells. And they're like, wow, And so, and I'm always throwing like information out to them. Like there's one that I use all the time. If you do what's easy, life will be hard. If you do what's hard, life will be easy. So I get them to do a little bit more each time, Yeah, because this population, they're set in their ways. And it's sometimes more challenging to work with them than, say, a younger person who is just, learning all this stuff. They're pretty much like, I can't do that.
Yep.
I teach them how to get up out of the chair without holding on, all kinds of fun things that they need to learn.
And I think it's real important what you said is what you're thinking, your body responds to. That yoga isn't, I can't say I ever had like a negative view on yoga, but I was always like, that's not really for me. Like, I'm going to go running or I'm going to go lift something. Like, that's more my speed. And then when I started it, it was more a mindset thing than anything. It was exactly what you said. It was slowing down those thoughts, being able to say, okay, I'm not at work, so I'm not going to think about work. Like, this is what I'm thinking about now. And then it's almost like, at least for me, the mindset happened and then the physical benefits became kind of the byproduct, right? I'm more flexible. My workouts are better because I have better form. My posture is better, which my mother has rode my ass for years that my posture is bad. I slouch, which she's not wrong, right? I was always the tall kid. So I always want to be like, I'm your guys' height. But now I notice now when I'm slouching, where before that was the norm. And you teach chair yoga. I myself am not super familiar with that because I'm the get on the floor and do it, right? But I have had a lot of people say to me, and it could either be they're limited based on age, injury, weight is a big one, right? Why people don't want to get on the floor. So what unique qualities does chair yoga allow for you to kind of bring into the fold compared to what your traditional yoga might give you for older, we'll say older or limited mobility people?
Okay, very good. Well, first of all, I do teach both yoga.
Yep.
I'm in a community where more and more people are retiring younger. I came to the villages, I was 49. People are coming to the villages, though, that are in their 50s. They're retiring younger. So I do get a certain number of people for my mat yoga classes, which is great.
Awesome.
But the chair yoga became very, very popular over time. I could see that more older people were looking for it. They were requesting it. They're either have a hard time. They have walkers or wheelchairs or whatever sometimes, or they're just limited in their ability, in their thinking as well as physical abilities. And so they're at this point where they got to do something. And they thought chair yoga would be a good place to start, right? So you're asking me, why am I doing chair yoga? So I'm doing it because I'm in a population of people that I have an endless supply of customers that are really looking to enhance their health in some way. And they found that this is a good way.
When you start to work with your students, because I'll make the assumption that you get students of all different capability levels. Maybe some who have only heard the word yoga uttered, others who maybe have dabbled in it. When you start to work with your students, what is something that you start to notice shift in them almost immediately as you start to work with them?
Very good. Very good question. So let me think about my students that I teach a class called Gentle Yoga for Newbies. That's the name of the class.
I like it.
For people that either never did yoga or people that have been a little rusty over the years, they haven't been doing it regularly. So get them back into the practice again, right? So what I start to notice is their flexibility changes rather quickly. When I start teaching the classes, I always bring it right to the beginning when I start, People have to learn how to, well, I shouldn't say have to learn. That isn't exactly what I mean. But when they come into the practice, the first thing I teach is the ability to tune within. Like you had said, you're not thinking about other things. I call yoga a mind vacation because for that hour and a half that I'm teaching, they're there, they're present. So I'm teaching about present moment awareness, teaching about breathing techniques. I'm teaching about how to open the body, how to get at that stuck energy that's in there, that they don't realize all these traumas are stuck in their bodies, and just getting them more aware of like they'll move in one way and say, I never felt that before. I never, there's parts of their bodies that are so tight. So I'm giving a body awareness first, right? Body and mind awareness. Go within, breathe, connect to yourself, leave behind everything else. And so I start to see a difference. They light up a little bit more. They're loving it. They're loving the practice. They like the time that they dedicate to themselves, that they're not worried about other things, right? They are involved in what they're doing. So I guess that is the first thing I recognize, that people start to relax into it, right? And at the end of my classes, every time I do at least 10, sometimes 15-minute guided relaxation.
Nice.
For doing a breathing technique, getting them really calm, and then going through the whole body scan. I mean, sometimes they fall asleep.
Yep.
They're so relaxed, and they walk out of the room feeling like a different person. And
That's awesome.
that is really something I strive to help them to feel good about their bodies and their abilities, and quiet the mind and relax the body.
And having that awareness, because yoga is something that if you're going to do it, it's not something you're ever going to do while you multitask.
Yeah.
And it's either going to affect your flow or you're eventually just going to get up and walk away. So it really is something that doesn't give you the option to be distracted. Mm-hmm. You've got to be willing to give yourself over to it for whatever that length of time is.
Right. And they do. They're glad they're there. They're glad they came. And I thought of something else too. I thought of, my older folks that are in the chair yoga classes, their ability to function and do everyday activities that they couldn't actually do with ease before. If you're doing this chair yoga stuff on a regular basis, you can get up out of your chair. You can go do things that, everybody else is doing without feeling restricted.
Yep.
So one student of mine said to me one day, and this was always funny because I use this in my class all the time. She said to me, Maryann, I'm so excited. I can reach the ice cream cones in the cabinet now. She had more ability to stretch, right? And she was so excited. So I tell people that, I'm always making them laugh. I'm always giving them tips and, throwing out different things. It's not just, okay, we're going to do these movements. There's a lot more to it that they enjoy the class. Yeah.
Yeah, it's literally in some cases life-changing.
Yeah, I believe that. So the classes I do in chair yoga here, I'm telling you, they fill up. There's a waiting list. I have 45 people in the chair yoga, and there's a waiting list because they come back I do 6-week classes. They pay $60 for 6 weeks, and then they come back and sign up again. 6 weeks, and the same people are coming back all the time,
That's
so
awesome.
Very cool. Yeah,
that's awesome. And you've worked with in several capacities, right? Many people in formal classes, privately. Mm-hmm. Is there a moment that you can share about one of your students where their experience, let's say, was so profound that it was one of those spiritual frying pan moments, right? Where it was like, yes, this is exactly why I'm doing this.
Thanks for that question. There's probably several of them, but the one that really, and I think I've already talked about this, because it really profoundly hit me, was when one of my students told me how she taught her sister that breathing technique. And her sister went to the doctor as well and just lowered her blood pressure. And at home, she uses the technique and she's breathing better. I mean, I used to teach yoga in a salt room. Do you ever hear of salt rooms?
I have, but I've not ever been in one.
Well, and I'll go just veer off for a second. A salt room is a place where people would go and they would heal from the use of a very high quality Himalayan salt that the walls were all salt. The floor was salt. And a fine mist of salt would come into the room. Now, they don't choke on it or whatever. See, your body is bathed in salt. Your whole body is a saline solution, all your internal, everything. So you're giving the body what it already has, right? So I used to go into these rooms and I used to teach them how to breathe correctly so that the salt would enhance and they'd reduce their respiratory issues, get off their inhalers, their breathing stuff, and all this incredible stuff. It was crazy. Anyway, I think it was the breathing techniques that affect people a lot. But I'm trying to think of one. Like, students are always telling me, I have people I'm not trying to brag, but honestly, they love my classes.
Yeah.
They say to me, I've never taken a yoga class. I mean, in my chair yoga class, you know what we do? We use light weights. We have a whole segment where we're using weights.
Very cool.
We add that in because I try to explain to them that if they do not maintain the muscle, they're going to age so much quicker. And they come back because they love that part of the class. So I turn on fun music, and it's almost like dancing. We get into it, with they bring their own light weights and we have a great portion of that. So people are telling me all the time, I love taking these classes. I had to make my class different because the Enrichment Academy had about 4 chair yoga classes, different teachers. So I had to come up with something unique So I thought
Yep.
about the weights, and that was a big hit. So I'm glad I do. So they're telling me all the time that they're feeling stronger. They're less worried about falling. It's just making an impact on their health and well-being and their mindset as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. If yoga were a message, right? Not something we do, but something we hear, what would it whisper to women? What would it want women to know?
That's quite an interesting question, Sierra. What would we want women to know? If you can get a message from yoga, you can live your best life if you just take better care of yourself through yoga. You can move better. You can breathe better. You can enjoy your life and be present in the important things in your life by doing this simple daily activity. That's
Fantastic.
what came to me.
I love it. Yeah, it's something, again, it's so underrated. And I think it gets a bad rap that it's not an exercise because you're not, trying to get your heart rate up. And it's so much more than what people realize, that if you just give it a shot.
That's right.
Have you been approached before? And if you have, a lot of people think, and a lot of women think, right, especially if they're trying to get healthier and they're aging, yoga is too hard, right? I can't stretch. I can't get on the floor. I can't do this. What do you say to them? How do you combat that to at least get them to give it a shot?
Yeah. I asked them if they had a teacher that instructed them, or someone that they just go into. Lots of times people just go into a yoga class where they're doing all of the poses. They just jump right into it. They walk into a class like that, and then they find themselves lost, and they say, I can't. They look around. I can't do that. Or they'll see it on TV, or, they'll see someone sitting in lotus position and think, oh, that's not for me, right? I can't do that. So I say to them, the very reason I'm teaching this is to help you understand that anybody can do this, but we have to go at it at a pace and a learning that you go at your own level, and you learn these simple techniques that you realize that you can do it. So that's why I love teaching beginner yoga. I love kind of molding their minds into understanding that it really isn't a hard thing to do if you have the right teacher. And I'm not saying I'm the best teacher out there. I'm not saying that, but I love taking a beginner and getting them started, because I think that if they have the right start, then they won't have that opinion of yoga,
Absolutely. And I'll speak as somebody who did learn from you, and you did teach me, that you were very conscious to take the time, because you had an eclectic group of us when we did it, right? You had some women older than me. Your granddaughter joined us before, I remember. And in my head, I'm thinking, she's going to bend her body in ways I couldn't even imagine. But you made sure to take the time that you would show us the pose and then give us alternatives.
Yeah, modifications are very important.
And that is super important. And I think it's great that you take the time to work that in. So it's not just, if you can't do lotus, okay, skip it. Like, we're going to find a way. And then eventually it's going to get you to where you can do it.
Exactly.
And yoga, I mean, we've kind of already talked about it a lot. It's for all stages of life, right? Everybody can benefit. How can it really support women through the different seasons of life, let's say? We have our younger years, then we start to shift into perimenopause and postmenopause. How can we leverage yoga during those different stages of life to let our bodies, let's say, embrace those changes as opposed to fighting those aging changes?
Right. Yeah. Because let's face it, women go through a lot, between puberty and then, all the way up through menopause. I mean, it's quite a lot of changes. It's the acceptance in that is important, to allow yourself to get connected with your body and your mind, to be more aware of what your body is going through, and instead of fighting it, trying to accept it. And that's not always easy for everyone. But if you're able to get into a space where you calm the mind and move the body, you'll have less of a hard time as you go through those changes. I really believe that. Yeah. I really believe that, because you have teenagers doing yoga, and like you said, they're bending in all different kinds of shapes. They like those hard, hot yoga classes. And I actually teach yoga for men. I'm starting a class this fall. Yoga for Men is what it's called.
Great.
And I do have a lot of men in my classes too. It's not just all women, but going through those changes I think yoga is one of the best things you could do. If you start it at any age, it doesn't matter. But if you're say perimenopause, and that's a real hard struggle time. And then getting through that in your late 40s and 50s, and then getting to menopause, just being gentle with yourself and to accept where you're at, is really important. So it's connection to the mind, body, spirit that's important.
Now for you, you kind of happened upon yoga once you had an injury.
Mm-hmm.
And why do you think it is that a lot of us wait until the pain has already happened or the stress becomes too much before we turn to something like yoga to help us alleviate those problems?
Oh my God. Sierra, it's like that with everything in life, right? We wait too late, we wait till like, oh my God, there's no money left. How are we going to live or whatever, Why do people wait? Sometimes because they have enough to do already and they think this is just another thing to add to their life. How can I possibly fit this in on top of all the other stuff? When I think about that, I just believe that people in general wait for something to happen before they make a change. Just the challenge of life could be so tough that once they're in a position where they don't know what else to do, they start looking for different ways on how to heal. And that becomes an easy place to, I think for me anyway, an easy, oh my God, I'm going to start this because this is going to help me to quiet my mind, to heal help my back. A lot of people come to me, they have a bad back.
Yep.
And I teach them how to strengthen, especially that lower lumbar spine. That's where the injuries occur. So I have a great technique in teaching people how to heal that, or at least strengthen that area to the degree that they don't have to worry. I call it those black belts that people wear around their waist when they're going to lift something up. It's a Velcro belt. They use it to keep that low back in place, right? I teach them a natural way to do that without the belt. And it's basically tucking that tailbone in and doing that pelvic tilt. And we do it on the floor. We do it in a chair. We do whatever.
Yep. Awesome. If there was just one yoga pose that you wish every woman knew how to do and would take the time to do, what one pose would that be?
Oh, goodness. When I'm doing, I guess I'd say this one thing before I answer that. When I'm doing yoga and I get into some of these stretches and breathing and poses, I'm like, oh my God, that feels, I'm saying it out loud to myself. Oh my God, this feels so good. I call it yoga orgasms because you are feeling so darn good in these poses. But I think a child's pose, believe it or not, the child's pose, once you can relax in that, boy, your back gets stretched.
Yep.
Your whole nervous system decompresses, and it takes a while for people to get comfortable in that pose even still, they're very tight,
Yep.
So that one, and the next one I'd say is the cat and cow pose.
Yep.
Right?
Very
The
good.
back, yeah.
Yep. I'm glad you said child pose. Mentally, I was thinking like, I hope that's the one she says.
Yeah.
Because that is probably one of my favorites after a workout, right? Even if back wasn't my focal point, just to get into that, be able to feel like your arms lengthen. And once you settle and you start to feel all like the slight little shifts and maybe the pops, it catches you for a second, right? You're like, oh, is that a good thing? And then you just feel it like relax a little more. Like, yes, that's an amazing pose that
it is.
Everybody should, men or women, need to
right.
know that one and do that
I
one.
agree.
But yoga isn't your only passion. Yoga is not your only, calling, because you really stepped into the holistic approach to health after leaving the medical field and while you were in it, right? The difference was just you were a little handcuffed when you were in the medical field to be able to really embrace that. When we say holistic health, I think it's an underused term that a lot of people don't realize what it is. And what does holistic health mean to you when it comes to everyday life?
Well, very good question. Holistic encompasses the body, the mind, and the spirit, where conventional healthcare just takes care of the body, or doesn't to be honest, but it makes it
Yep.
its greatest attempt to, I guess, where
Yep.
you're looking at people's lifestyle, you're looking at people's mindset, their not just the foods that, like when you go to a conventional doctor, he doesn't ask you what you had to eat today or if the food itself was actually even having an impact on you.
Yep.
Think about this. When you go bring your animal to the veterinarian and your animal's sick, what is the first question they ask?
What's their diet?
Yeah, what do you feed them? You don't ask people that question. Isn't that weird? That's so bizarre. So there's a lot more, though, than just what you put in your mouth. It's what you put in your mind. It's your environment, the people that surround you, your support systems. There's so much to it. And that's where now functional medicine is going to become the forefront of our medical industry soon, as we watch the collapse of this failing conventional medical system. The functional
Yep.
medicine doctors are popping up everywhere, and that's where I get my greatest learning. Truly, yeah.
Absolutely. I love that you threw that in there about what is your pet's diet, because not only do they ask you that, they then elaborate on some suggestions and why you might want to make those changes, where, to your point, one, your doctor doesn't even ask that. And I think it's safe to bet 9 times out of 10, the solution to whatever your symptoms is going to be a pill that's going to treat the symptom and not treat the root cause.
Yep. They don't
Yep.
get to the root cause. They band-aid it. They band-aid the symptoms. Yeah.
Yep.
Unfortunately. And so it really doesn't get the person on that healing journey. So they,
Yep.
all doctors' offices need health coaches.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Are there some simple practices that you either recommend to clients or you've really worked into your own routine that you would encourage our listeners to start working into their daily routine to start to take this more holistic approach to their health?
There's probably lots of them, but one that comes to my mind when you're asking that question is salt. Salt has been giving a bad rap for a long time.
Yes,
I think
it
back
has.
When I think back to my mother-in-law, my first marriage, my mother-in-law, I didn't have the knowledge I have today. And she was one that was going through all the typical medical challenges as she aged. And she'd go to the doctor and he'd put her on a salt-free diet. And then, of course, she started to experience heart problems. And then with the statins, she started to exhibit, dementia. And everybody kept saying, well, it's in the family. They contributed all to genetics, when actually a lot of things are beyond that. So anyway, just getting back to salt. So let me just mention that the pure Himalayan or Celtic salt contains 80. It's not available in our foods anymore. We can't find minerals that actually support our health anymore in our food because the soil doesn't have them in it. It's sprayed, oversprayed, full of pesticides. So the salt not only enhances the quality of your health and well-being, but it's an electrolyte that your body needs to pump your heart, right? And to keep things in balance, because if your sodium level is low, you can start to experience chest pain. What's the first thing they give you when you go to the emergency room? A bag of saline. And they charge you, They charge Medicare tons of money to put a bag of saline on you, right? So what I do, especially living in Florida, there's a couple of ways I use Himalayan salt. I actually do lectures. I used to go do lectures for the salt room and teach people how to do salt. It was just incredible. About 1/8 to 1/4 of a teaspoon of Himalayan or Celtic. I love Himalayan. I buy mine from a very high quality source online. On the tip of the tongue, and you let it dissolve for about 5 to 10 minutes. Just rub it up against the roof of your mouth. Then drink about 6 to 8 ounces of water. Your body will not only be hydrated, because basically your cells contain saline. So when you drink plain water, it washes through your system very quickly, and you're peeing all the time. When you take in a dose of salt like this, your body takes and absorbs the water, and it utilizes it for what it's necessary in the body. So it's not accumulating in the tissues. You're not getting edema. You're not getting high blood pressure. It's actually a health food. So that's one way to use it. There are various ways to use it. And every morning I have a teaspoon of what they call, a tablespoon actually, of Soleil, and I add that to my water. And that's Himalayan rock crystals that have been soaked in a high alkaline water for at least 24 hours. It sits on your counter in a covered jar, and you take a tablespoon of that and you add it to your water in the morning. And the immense health benefits of that, I have a book called The Essence of Salt and Water, and it is eye-opening. the improvements in one's body, mind, and spirit that this salt will do. It's incredible. From skin conditions to GI conditions to just balancing out your electrolytes. And feeling and like you're going to go out in the heat in Florida, if you take that salt and you put it on the tip of your tongue and drink that water, you go out in the heat, you're not going to feel it. It's not going to dehydrate you. It's not going to make you feel lethargic and tired from the heat. I tell the golfers all the time as they're out there playing golf, this is what you need to do. Now, of course, there's lots of electrolyte drinks. Our company just came out with a real good one, which I really love. And try that pure protein, that clear protein it's called.
I haven't, because I have a super sensitivity to whey.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, there is
So
whey
I'm
in
hoping that they come out with it in some sort of plant-based form, but it looks amazing.
Oh, it's delicious. I love it. I'm addicted to it. And it has electrolytes and 20 grams of protein in it. So I'm telling people about this all the time. Yeah. So anyway, I think the salt is one that people are just not aware of. So it's something for them to look up a little bit more. There's a site called HimalayanCrystalSalt.com. It educates you unbelievable about the differences between white table salt and pure Himalayan salt, and it just gives you so much information.
Awesome. I'm really glad you brought this up, because I follow you obviously on social media, and I see your posts about this, and salt has started to become a topic. And it's funny because I used to think like, I never put salt on anything, so I'm not going to have like all this excess water weight or anything like that. Not that, I mean, if you cook your food good, you probably don't need salt anyway. But there's sometimes when you need that something like to taste. And, you just referenced a great resource that our listeners can use to educate themselves. But can you point out a couple benefits that they get or that you get specifically from Himalayan salt that you're not going to get from your regular table salt that's in the shaker?
Okay. Well, regular table salt itself, the white salt, let me just tell you, it's been chlorinized, it's been dyed to look white like that. They pull out the minerals that support your health in that for whatever reason, I don't know, but it's just something we grew up with, that kind of salt. Where when you use a Himalayan salt, not only will it enhance the flavor of your food, really good chefs, holistic chefs mainly, use pure Himalayan salt in their food and their cooking, and Celtic salt as well. Either or, they both contain high mineral content. But I think the thing I understand, and where I started to learn about this, it's really interesting. I went to a lecture once by Dr. Peter Greenlaw. He was talking about cleansing toxins from the body. And he had mentioned Himalayan sea salt to hydrate you. And I was like intrigued by that. Just, he just blew by it real quick. And I went home and started doing my own research on it. And I realized, we have to give the body what the body already has in order for it to heal. So the body is bathed in a saline solution. Being a nurse, I understand how they give you saline as soon as you're dehydrated, as soon as that's the first line that they give you. And it's because it's an electrolyte and your body needs it to function properly. So if you're taking a very poor salt, like a white table salt, it is stealing minerals from your body. It is creating what they call that hypertension, that edema that results in your extremities, where this salt is absorbed into your system and utilized. So water can be utilized as what water should be doing, is getting in the cells and flushing out the toxins at the cellular level. And it can get in there because of osmosis. If it has the same polarity as on the outside of the cell as the inside of the cell, then it's going to get in and do its job. If you're drinking clear water all the time, it just washes through the system. To the bathroom you go. You don't have to go to the bathroom as much, and you're not retaining fluid. You're not raising your blood pressure. It actually gives you energy. It helps your digestion. There's endless things it can do. I don't know. I can always remember them all, but it's just impactful, the health benefits of a good quality salt.
So it's making quality salt a priority.
Yeah.
Right? All salts aren't created, kind of like carbs, right? Not all carbs are created equal. Carbs aren't bad.
Exactly.
You just need to make sure that we're getting the right ones.
Mm-hmm.
And when you work with your clients, how do you really help the women that you work with to really take the time to tune into their body, especially in today's world where, as much as we're working to shift this mindset, the mindset is push harder, work harder, be better, and ignore, what your body's telling you. You're tired, that's fine, you can keep going. You're sore, it's fine, you can keep going. How do you help women to rewire that process to start to slow down and really tune into what their body's telling them?
Good question. Well, first, it's realizing and listening. Like you just said, your body speaks to you all the time. And like you said, most of the time we are on a track where we just got to keep going. We got to pay the bills. We got to get dinner. We got to pick the kids up. That few minutes in the morning where you can rewire your brain, if you can take 5 to 10 minutes in the morning, stick in your earbuds, go on YouTube, find a guided meditation that will walk you through the process of starting your day right. Your whole day could be a completely different day. It not only settles your mind, but it relaxes your body and gives you just a great starting place for the day. And if you have the time to then have a pen and a journal next to your bed to write down whatever thoughts are coming through, that's another excellent thing to do. Now, a lot of women say, I don't have the time for that. My kids are up. You got to get up a few minutes early. You got to take care of you, because if you're not taking care of you, you're certainly not going to be able to help the rest of the family, right? If you're
100%.
stressed, they're going to learn from that. They're going to
Yep.
say, well, that's what my mom went through, and they learn by example, right?
Yep.
So it's, if your kids could see, and if you could do a little stretching and breathing, you got a great combination to start your day, so that as your day goes on, even in the middle of the day, if you're having a rough time, stop and do a simple box breathing technique that's really good. Breathe in for 5, hold for 5, breathe out for 5, and do it again. Well, actually, there's 4. In, out, in, pause, out, pause. In, pause, out, pause. So it's like a box, right? And you do like maybe 4 or 5 of those. It'll reset your nervous system. It takes less than 5 minutes to do, right?
Yep.
So there are these simple little things that if you're not paying attention to your body, if you're running around all the time and you're under constant fight or flight mode, your body is going to experience breakdown. So why not handle it before that happens?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you operate from a space of calmness is unsettling, right? Because you're waiting for what's going to happen next. That, excuse me, is a clear sign that you need to make the time, those 5 or 10 minutes, because you have it. You just need to be willing to give it and do those techniques, do the guided meditation, the breathing, some journaling, whatever speaks to you, because the world isn't slowing down, but we need to figure out how to slow down in a world that's not going to stop.
That's right. We have to learn to do that for ourselves. I have a brother, unfortunately, my older brother, Bobby, and he's a stress mess. And I try to gradually introduce these things to him, and they're so foreign to him. We talked about intermittent fasting the other day, or going a day without eating. It was like I was from another planet. He says, I can't do that. What am I going to do when I get hungry? Oh my, there was, I love him dearly. He's the one that introduced me to my husband, Dennis. So I just want to always help him. But he's not willing and open to it. It's easier to take a pill. Yeah, I'm sad about that, but you can't change the world. You can only, offer the information, and those that are willing will bite, and those that aren't just have to do it the hard way. And that's what, unfortunately, they're doing.
Yep. When you see a woman that you work with really take that step and say, Maryann, I'm all in. Help me. I want to be better. I want to improve my life. And they start to make that true shift to a holistic lifestyle. What changes in them stand out the most to you? Because you obviously see them, let's say, I love that phrase, that stress mess, right? What stands out to you as they start this journey and they accept your support and your guidance? What changes do you see the most?
I see them come to life again. I see them smile more. I see them more at ease. Maybe their clothes are fitting better. Maybe they're sleeping better, drinking more water. They're simple things can make a profound difference in people's lives. So when we start out with the basics like that, like just drink more water. It's amazing. That's the first thing we learned in integrative nutrition. I just start to see a shell of a person open up and become more whole, more aware, enjoy life more, take control of their life more. Let me tell you this, the very first client I had as a health coach, I'll never forget it. She came to me because she was struggling in her relationship. She was not the person, she wasn't happy. And sometimes it's not all about food. She was a
Yep.
fairly good, healthy eater, and I met her because we went to her wedding. Well, as we discussed certain aspects of the relationships and different things and how to empower her to be the best she could be, she ended up getting a divorce, which
Oh,
wasn't
wow.
my intention. But she was empowered enough to stand up for herself for what she needed and wanted.
Yep.
So holistic health, like I said, isn't all about the food. It's really
Yep.
about complete lifestyle, that what you need to serve you to live your best life. I mean, currently right now, Dennis and I have a client we're working with. She's a young 24-year-old girl who was just engrossed in trauma her whole life. And boy, after just 2 sessions, she's changing her life like unbelievable. I'm standing
That's
back watching her
awesome.
posts, and I'm like, holy moly, where did this girl come from? She was not that sad little girl that I saw a couple weeks ago. So it's an interesting process, but it's just being there to support them on their journey and listening, giving them the space to be able to speak what's on their heart and mind. And sometimes they figure these things out themselves, as long as they have someone there kind of holding the space for them. It's incredible.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah. It's not just about the nutrition or the fitness. You said the word that I love it when people say this word, and it's lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're creating, right? We're not in this for a short period of time to get a quick result and then revert back to the disaster that we were at the beginning of the process. We are building a lifestyle that's going to carry us through this phase of life, the next one, onto the next life, or whatever you as a listener believe happens next. This is all building for something. It's not just for today and then tomorrow we're going to throw in the towel and walk away.
Yeah. If they're really committed, they're in 100%,
Yep.
which is great to see. Yeah. I currently teach a 6-week course on integrative nutrition. The name of the course is called Integrative Nutrition, a whole life approach to health and happiness. And each week, the interaction among the students and the learning that went on, and I learned a lot from them. They learned from me. It's phenomenal. And I teach that. I got 3 sessions of 6 weeks coming up starting in the fall, which is
Awesome.
really fun. So, I mean, I went right back to the roots where I came from with integrative in
Yep.
2004. Why not, right? These principles are still very valuable. Let's talk about primary food, it's not what's on your plate, and just, it's so much fun. Yeah.
That's great. Well, we have certainly covered a lot, but I always like to leave our listeners with just a few things that they can start to, implement right now, or it's things that maybe is going to inspire them. So what brings you the most joy in your work right now?
What brings me the most joy? I love going into a room of students that are eager to learn. It makes my heart so happy that I see people that want to know this stuff. Right? If I walk into my integrative nutrition course and there's 30 people sitting around a table, I'm like, wow, I'm gonna help enlighten them, help them see how powerful they are and what they have control of for themselves. It's really about empowering them to heal themselves. And the same with chair yoga. I go in there and I see 45 eager students ready to get started. And that just keeps me going because I see changes in their health and well-being, their mental state, their lives get better. And that keeps me going because that's what I'm here on earth to do. I know it is. They say people, they should really try to discover why they're here. And I feel like I've discovered that. Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. What is one hope that you have for the women listening to our episode right now?
Well, as we go through rapid changes right now, shifts are happening in our consciousness so much that you go within as much as you can. You check in with yourself, you find that quiet space within your mind, calm your body, and give yourself that time to breathe, to center yourself, and to really ask the deeper questions of yourself. Is this the life I want to lead? What changes can I make today that will help shift my illness, my mental status, my need for all this medication? What can I do? Connect with yourself. You have all the answers you ever needed within yourself. And you also have a pharmacy within your own body that's there to help you heal. Anything outside of you isn't always needed. It's you, the answers are right there for you. It's just quieting the mind. That's the most important thing I can say. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now you touched on it a little bit right there. Quieting the mind, connecting with themselves. Depending where women are, that can be a big thing for them to start to do. What is something small, practical, I want to say simple, right? Because easy is relative. Simple that women can do today to feel more aligned with their health in their body?
I would say the simplest practice would be to get yourself, see the earbuds I have in my ears? Get yourself some earbuds and plug into a YouTube video, short one, 5 minutes, 7 minutes.
Yep.
Right in the search bar, a guided meditation for what is it you're feeling? Anxiety, restlessness, sleeplessness. What is it you're feeling? And just write that in the search bar and look what comes up for you. And you will be amazed how well you will feel if you will just give yourself that couple of minutes to connect. That's the simplest thing I can say. Besides drinking more water and adding salt to your diet, that's probably one of the simplest things. There's lots more things I could add, but that's easy. And that's a way for people to connect and get the truth out from their self, what they're needing, what they're looking for. Mm-hmm.
And I would say to that, take the time to explore multiple videos, because it's going to be, I finally stumbled across a channel, I think it's the Honest Guys.
Yeah.
And they do a lot of different, because I was always looking for meditations to help me sleep, because it was trying to shut my mind off to go to sleep and stay asleep. And I like their voices. I like the tone. So take that time, because there's different ones out there. For everybody's going to be different frequencies, part of it. But
Exactly.
I love that. And I love that you said, do it with the earbuds. It is a very different experience. If you have it as like a headphone experience, than if it's just playing through your phone, because then you're trying to find the right volume level, and are you going to disturb somebody else? Are you going to get the ambient noise?
Yeah.
So I love
there's
that.
another good one that I really like. It's called Mindful Movement.
Okay.
Sarah Raymond is her name, and she's got a voice like you can't believe, and she's offered so many videos. Sarah Raymond. Yeah. And I also do EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, tapping. You can look that up online too, EFT, the tapping solution. You can watch it on YouTube.
Right. Yeah. Great resource right there. In general is YouTube, and could be where you're watching our podcast right now. So you're going to get our great information too. So certainly, last but not least, Maryann, how can our listeners connect with you and experience your classes and your coaching?
Well, right now, I do most of my work on Facebook. If they connect with Maryann Holden on Facebook, I don't have a website. So just look me up on Facebook. I have a Holden Health, a Drugless Practitioner Facebook page. I have a Maryann Holden Yoga page, and I have a Maryann Holden page. Mostly my Maryann Holden page gets the most information out there for people. A lot of health information. And if they want to connect with me, they can certainly send me a private message there, and we could see where I could be of service to them.
Great. So we will have that contact information down in our show notes where they can connect with you, reach out so that they can learn more, experience your classes. I'm sure at some point, and hopefully we'll have him on as a guest, connect with Dennis. We will make sure to get that out to our listeners. So I want to thank you, Maryann, for taking the time out of your day to come on and talk about all these great things. And I'm already thinking of some future episodes, if you would be willing to come on for topics that we can cover, because we did cover a lot today, but we can go so much deeper. I want to thank our listeners. If you got anything out of this episode that was beneficial, please make sure to rate us, leave us a comment, share this out with another woman in your life who could benefit from this. And we will see you on the next episode of Mind Body Revolution.
Thank you, Sierra, very, very much. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Maryann.